Straight games, no filler. This is Status Quo, episode number 22. My name is Queasy Crayfish, and as always, I'm joined by...
22 is my favorite number.
Excuse me. Tayshawn Prince. Is it really your favorite number?
Yeah, it is.
2 is my favorite number. I don't know why, but
I like.
But yeah, okay, that's Marz Vindicator.
Yeah, I meant to just say that when I was supposed to say my name, but I didn't know you were going to say that.
Interrupterator.
Yeah, it was my bad. I ruined everything.
Yeah, this is episode number 22 of your favorite podcast. And as always, we have some great topics in store for you today. We're going to talk about shared universes in gaming. We're going to talk about consoles supposedly or not holding, PCs back. There's always a debate about that between the PC master race and the console plebs, as it were. And we're going to talk about the great Telltale Games closure. And finally, we're going to talk about sports games, simulation games specifically. But before we get to any of that, we're going to go to, some flake news. All right, Marz Vindicator, are you ready for some flake news?
Can I just say something really quick?
No.
Please.
Okay.
I just, as we're doing this podcast, I'm usually looking at game stuff. Sometimes I just see things that just blow my damn mind.
Like what?
And I am just appalled that GameSpot gave the Zone of the Enders re-release on PS4 a 5.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought you would be upset about that.
I mean...
5. Which, let's be real here. No big gaming outlets give any games, current games, like anything less than a 7 nowadays, or so it seems. So for them to give that a 5, they must really think it's terrible. That's like basically like giving it like a 0.
Okay, what kills me? Okay, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. If they do an HD of Superman 64, it should get a 2, right? Because that game is a 2. But GameSpot themselves have a link to the original game's review where they gave it an 8.5, and the tagline is Zone of the Enders, the second runner, is what the original Zone of Enders should have been.
Well, so why did they give this one a 5?
Because the controls didn't hold up.
Your face didn't hold up.
And they're complaining. They're complaining about the VR mode.
Something that wasn't in the original game.
Yeah, did you guys think it was just going to be an easy transition? Okay.
I hate that when they add something to the game in the re-release and then that they criticize this thing that wasn't even in. I don't know. Just what? Okay, I'm done. We can go to flake news. Okay. Flake news number 1. Zone of the Enders gets 5 out of no. Here's a good one. This is actually apropos after that little interlude there. TGS was, this past weekend we got a new Death Stranding trailer featuring a guy in a skull mask and a big monster beast and no new details. So what do you think about that? Did you watch this trailer?
I actually did not watch the trailer.
No.
Despite being such a Kojima fan, I have this thing with trailers. I just honestly do. I will watch it. I just didn't jump to it, and I've seen some screenshots of it. But I know
I've basically seen it then.
Right, yeah, I figured so. I know how Kojima stuff goes, par for the course. So, it's Death Stranding, so yay. But at the same time, it's flake news.
Yeah. It kind of I think people aren't going to know what this game is even as the end credits are scrolling.
Yeah, probably.
They're going to be like, what did I just play?
HD re-release on PS7.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell it is.
What is Death Stranding? I don't know.
Right, or excuse me, that'll be the 16K re-release.
16K.
Yeah, that's what it will be.
Next up, a new Pokemon was discovered this week. A mythical Pokemon, apparently, called Meltan. Have you seen Meltan?
Yeah, I have.
Isn't it a great looking Pokemon?
Yeah, I feel like this is just them making the most of a new missing though. Like, oh,
yeah, it was.
Psych, it's actually real. You know.
Yeah, I was for Community Day was on. I forget what day that was, the 22nd or 21st or something. And, you know, we were all walking around the park, you know, catching chikorritas and stuff. And then when Community Day ended, all of a sudden there was these Meltans everywhere. And they at the time, we didn't know what it was called. But then when you catch them, they just turn into Dittos. And I have not found one so far that does not just turn into a Ditto in Pokemon Go. But supposedly this is gearing up for it's going to be in, you know, Let's Go or whatever. It's not a very exciting Pokemon. It's just like... it looks like a white Ditto with a nut on its head and an eye in the middle of the nut. So that's flake news.
Well, have you done a Google image search for Meltan yet?
No.
Well, apparently there's like some Asian model named Meltan. So when you search Google Images, you
get a nice surprise.
Yeah, you know. It's only, I mean, but that has to suck. Like, I'm sure for the longest she had, like, you know, the domination over Google. Now she's gonna take it by Pokemon, you know. That's hilarious. Like, well, I used to be able to Google search me, you know, but, you know, Pokemon, damn.
Okay. That's real news.
Yeah, that sucks. Oh, yeah, that sucks.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple pieces of Bethesda news here. So, number one, according to a trademark that was filed, apparently the subtitle of Elder Scrolls 6 may have been revealed through this trademark as Redfall.
Is that where the Red Guards live?
I think so.
Ooh. Black Lives Matter, you say? Ooh.
I think so. Yeah, so that's all there is to it. But
I mean, I'm actually, well, I guess the only thing I'll say about that is I'm actually not a big fan of like deserts as like, you know, like settings in games. And I think Redfall, I think, is mostly a desert. I don't know much about it. Maybe it is totally inspired by Africa, so then we get like some forests or something. But if it's like totally desert, I would just be a little upset, because that was one thing I didn't like about Skyrim, was like it was just all snow. Yeah,
it would definitely be, you know, a different flavor from that. I mean, after years and years and years of playing endless Skyrim re-releases, I think even if it is just all desert, it might be a welcome change of pace for that series. But it didn't look like, you know, when they showed that teaser trailer, it certainly didn't look like desert really, but that could have just been placeholder.
Right.
Also, Pete Hines, this is actually kind of an older piece of news from a couple weeks ago, but Pete Hines of Bethesda, he's, I guess, some kind of creative director or something like that, says he sees Fallout 76 as being played and supported forever.
So, like, I mean,
well, it's an online game, and, you know, we had talked about before, dead games dying out, and so I thought it was interesting that he is, you know, suggesting that this game that's always online is going to be somehow supported forever.
Capital N, capital O. You know, every time I hear, you remember, like, Shenmue was like, we're gonna come out with 100 of these all on the Dreamcast, and then, you know, here we are, you know, what, 18 years later, still waiting for 3. You know what I mean? Same thing with Destiny. They were all, you know, Destiny's gonna go forever, and you're gonna have this, and then a year later they're like, just kidding, we're gonna do a sequel and make you all buy, you know, a full new game again. So
yeah, it's just some guy shooting his mouth off, basically.
Shooting his, I mean, he's shooting his mouth off.
That's what we call flake news. Lastly,
doesn't even deserve news.
lastly, this was a special request from your very own Marz Vindicator. Fortnite on PS4 will be supporting crossplay, apparently. So
starting today
at the time of this recording, which is Thursday. Or no, Wednesday. Sorry. Wednesday. I don't even know what
it depends on where you are in the world.
Exactly. But yeah, so, if you're a Fortnite player on PS4, you can now, carry your account over to other platforms as well. So, and play against other people. So, the lonely Fortnite PS4 galaxy is about to get much larger.
Right. So yeah, I think this is personally, I think this is going to be something that we see a trend in with these kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, because I'm trying my hardest to like not devalue Fortnite as a game. Like, like games that just come out and they're just like strictly online and they're very straightforward. I mean, I wouldn't even go as far as to call Fortnite a cash grab. But stuff kind of like that. Like, remember the Marvel Heroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like a big one. Or, like those kind of fake MMOs, that you get. But even some stuff, I could see it happening with what's the game with the aliens and the ninjas and the shooting? Warframe. Yeah, they don't use the advertisement anymore, but the old advertisement used to be like be a ninja or something or like ninjas play free. But yeah, I could see it happening with those games. But I would be very surprised if we get crossplay Tekken or crossplay, NBA 2K or even crossplay like Call of Duty. So, I would love it, but we'll see.
I mean, I feel like they've done that with some fighting games, haven't they? At least with like Xbox and PC, I think.
You mean PlayStation and PC?
Maybe.
I don't know. Fighting games are on Xbox and PC?
Isn't Killer Instinct? Or is it only on Xbox?
I think it's only on Xbox. I guess it's on Steam.
I don't know, but yeah, that would be. It'd be nice. I also kind of like, having separate but equal, consoles and platforms and everything. So,
I mean, wow, super segregation here. Malcolm X,
pro segregation crayfish here, yeah.
Right. No, I mean, sounded like Magneto over here. I just, I guess the thing that I will say is like, I think, I don't know. I don't mind the crossplay as much as what I would like to see is I still like differences in the consoles though. Don't get me wrong there. I think those differences should come in other features and exclusives though. So whether or not PlayStation is crossplay or the Switch, I think they're doing a good job. Xbox, not so much. So, and I just do want to remind people, everybody always forgets this, but the pioneer of this here shit is Final Fantasy 11. Okay. Not only did they do cross-platform, they did cross-generation. Okay. So you could play PS2, PC, 360, all online, all together. I think this is probably the first and only time that has ever happened. So this is nothing new, and it can definitely be done.
For sure. Well, with that, let's jump right into our first topic. And now this could also be considered a piece of flake news, just the premise for this topic here. But according to Marvel, or some people at Marvel, I guess, they see Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man for PS4, as being the quote-unquote Iron Man of the potential Marvel gaming universe. In the same way that Iron Man 1, kicked off the whole MCU and everything. I guess they see this new Spider-Man game as being possibly the beginning of a similar entity within gaming. And, I don't want to go too much into it because I want to get your take on this. But I just think that when I first read that, I thought, oh, wow, that's never been done before. But then I started to think about it and I thought, oh, maybe maybe this is just flake news. So I don't know, Marz Vindicated, what do you think about that, first of all?
Okay. I'll just say this. If we get more Spider-Man tier Marvel games and they are in a connected universe, I don't know if I'll do anything else with my life. Okay. That is probably one of the things that I've wanted the most in my life. And the reason I say that is because, I've kind of gone back and forth with Marvel stuff here recently. I tried to really get into comic books. I've always liked Marvel, right? It was something I always liked. But I would, watch the cartoons or play like the Marvel versus games or X-Men Legends, but I never really was big into the comic books. So I tried the comic books. They were kind of cool, but they also, just got ridiculous. And I think I'm being spoiled by living in 2018 with this because, I'll try to read like a comic book, but then I'll turn on Marvel Netflix, right? You just get this much better presentation for a story, at least to me, to like a younger or middle-aged millennial, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely prefer, 3 dimensions in my Marvel stories, voice acting, real characters, and not panels per se, right? So on top of that, though, in these shows, you always, of course, you only get what you get, right? And there's always going to be, every character, you're always going to want to see them do more because about more like around them. And I think that that's where the games can kind of come in and do a better job of that because, there's probably as much, Spider-Man Easter egg content, Spider-Man story content in that one game as there is in like an entire 10 episode like Marvel Netflix show, right? There's probably more, right? You get appearances from other characters, you get little items, little this, little that. So you get to really see the full scale of Spider-Man, to an extent. But we know it even goes deeper because I don't think, there's no Carnage, there's no Venom, yet. But then at the same time, you get to actually, again, the game like this, you get to see his, heroism at play, saving people from cars, beating up people, stringing people up on the roof, et cetera, right? So if I could get that for a number of different Marvel heroes, I would be extremely satisfied in my life. And I would probably think it's the best, way to experience Marvel.
Through games, I can see that because like a movie, you're only going to get probably an encounter with maybe 1 or 2 villains, at most. But in a game, you could potentially fight like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different right. Arch nemesis or whatever. My whole thing was just like looking at this as like when I first read this, I thought, wow, that's like a new idea for video games, and it was presented as like, this is going to be this thing that's going to change games or whatever. In the same way that because with the MCU, it was kind of like, in the past, if there was, say, in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, if if Captain America were to show up or something, he'd probably just be played by like unknown actor X, and he would have some small role or something like that, and they would easily just recast him in some later movie if they needed to or something like that. And one thing with the MCU was like taking big name actors or established actors and putting them in these roles and having them cross over with different movies and and having this consistency throughout the whole thing and story threads that kind of weave through different movies and everything like that. And that was kind of like the thing that had never really been done before in movies. But I think with games, like games are so much more franchise and sequel based as it is. I think like if you hear there's going to be a movie sequel, a lot of times people kind of like roll their eyes or something like that. They're like, oh, it's probably not going to be as good as the original, or even, you know, with books or albums or anything like that. Like usually the sequels are kind of have lower expectations a lot of times than the original does. But I think with games, usually it's expected that there's going to be some improvement over the original, and the sequels are like almost mandated or necessitated, I think. And like everything is a franchise in video games, or most everything at least. And so I think that it's not really that groundbreaking of an idea to have like a Marvel gaming universe. I mean, they've already had all kinds of Marvel games and everything like that. So I think for them, the only thing that would be different is if, like you said, if we can have just a bunch of Spider-Man quality Marvel games that are somehow interconnected. And that's really the thing, because you're not going to be able to keep everything exactly the same. I feel like, you know, as graphics advance, and, you know, you're going to have some levels of inconsistency, you know, in different developers and everything like that. So even different platforms. So it's really just I think the only thing that can really stitch them all together is just a really high standard of quality and triple A, you know, action and value and content and everything in it.
Well, I mean, not necessarily, because I think what they're looking for is like, I think what they're kind of getting at is like this MCU, right? Like where you'll encounter a hero in one game. Well, okay, you know what? Because see, I guess I think the movies do a better job, or excuse me, I think the TV, because do you watch the Netflix shows?
No.
Okay, so I guess, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from, because the way the movies are set up is like there's like movies for individual characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then those characters all come together in the Avengers, right? But until like maybe like something like Thor Ragnarok, you didn't see other franchise characters in other movies really, except for like an end credit scene, right?
Yeah.
So I think that a better explanation of how this works is the Netflix TV shows, right? So like, for example, in the first season of Jessica Jones, like Luke Cage is around, and they have like a relationship and they do stuff, right? He's like a character in the show, right? For like 2 or 3 episodes, and then he's gone. But then he has his own show, right? And then, you know, in that show, then he has his own show. And then and for example, like Rosario Dawson plays like Night Nurse / Claire Temple. They kind of like combine 2 characters, and she is like in Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, right? As like she's like a character in all 3 of them. Or like Misty Knight, who is kind of in Luke Cage. Like she's a kind of a big part of Luke Cage, but then since her and Colleen Wing are the Daughters of the Dragon, she also appears in Iron Fist, right? So with those, you kind of see more of this like shared thing going on. And then, you know, they all like, if there's some sort of law, if they mention law, they're probably going to mention Matt Murdock, you know, Daredevil and all that. So it wasn't like those they didn't just come together in the Defenders, right? Like how the movies do. That's like always being shared. So that's kind of how I imagine the games being. And that's kind of why I did see it as maybe somewhat of I wouldn't necessarily say groundbreaking, but kind of like a bigger thing where like, you know, you're playing a game, and then there's like a character in that game they're just in that game and they're doing some stuff. But then the next game that comes out is like that character's game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then that is its own, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this series, you know, continues to have a 1, 2, 3, 4. Or there's like these characters that, you know, continuously appear in each game. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And there have been shared game universes, but I don't think one has been like as intricate as that.
Yeah, or planned out. I mean, certainly we've seen, you know, like Half-Life and Portal, I guess, are supposed to be in the same universe, you know, Dead or Alive, Ninja Gaiden, stuff like that. We've seen you know, Metal Gear, Snatcher, you know, even like Final Fantasy there's certain connecting threads, I think, throughout those. But,
right.
Yeah, we haven't seen one that's like from the very beginning planned as being this thing. My only fear would be like if there was a big team up game. Are we going to see like Sonic Adventure, basically,
Right.
where in one moment you're playing as Spider-Man, and then you're playing as Captain America, and then you're playing as whomever else, and it's just like just too much to deal with. Because I think watching a movie, it's like you can cut to Captain America doing fighting a bad guy for 10 seconds, and then cut back to Spider-Man, and it's no big deal. But if you're completely different controls, completely different fighting styles, and just concepts, as far as like how to approach a different character, I think that could be very jarring to include a bunch of different play styles all in the same game. So I don't know.
I guess to me personally, I think what would make that better would be like if which actually I think would be really cool, would be if you had, so say like we have Spider-Man, it's this third person action game. If they did something, I would actually prefer that kind of game for X-Men, but I know it'd be kind of hard to do because there's so many characters. But maybe if there's something like a new X-Men Legends, right? And you use that style of game to include all the different people. Then you take something like I don't know, like somebody who's more, I'm just like Jessica Jones, or somebody who's more like detective based, and give her kind of a more Yakuza or now Project Judge style game where it's kind of more like investigative or like LA Noire. But then you just like put them all in a fighting game, right? And it's not that. But then, so what happens in the fighting game is, of course, it plays like a fighting game, but they have interactions with each other based on the, stuff from the other games. You know what I'm saying? I think something like that could work out. But I mean, that is a very, grand thing here. Yeah. I thought it would be like that, but something like that.
Remains to be seen, because we don't even have any like announcements or confirmations, I don't think, on any like future MGU games, like I guess. Well, really at this point
we don't, but I there was for a while now, Square has had rights to do this of like Marvel's game, like a Marvel Avengers game, for like a long while. And like, I mean, we E3 after E3, TGS after TGS, like we haven't seen anything. So
now could be the time. Although, I mean, I think it's weird too, like the exclusivity factor of it. I mean, it's like,
right, like Spider-Man,
PlayStation exclusive. So, I mean, how can you have this shared universe if, and maybe Square comes out with an Avengers game that's included in that universe, and it's not, it's multi-plat or something like that. It's like, well, I can't, I have an Xbox, I can't play Spider-Man. Yeah, I don't know. So there's a lot of different factors to consider. So it would be interesting to see if this could be pulled off in some, or just to see how they do it. I mean,
right. And I mean, and I think, maybe I think that stuff definitely will matter more with this type of series because, it's Disney, it's Marvel, it's supposed to make so much money. But I mean, they, I mean, we've always seen, franchises kind of, skip, consoles and things like that. Because I mean, like, GTA is a shared universe. I guess if anything, GTA is just supposed to be real life, in a sense. I don't think it's like quote unquote like a shared universe as much as it's like just reality.
Yeah,
like they're trying to make it reality. So, but and that's been on different systems. I think a big one that always comes to mind when I think of shared universe is all of the SNK fighting games, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
And then, of course, Capcom and, Final Fight and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's happened before, and I think it'll definitely happen. But it being Marvel, and then I think another thing that will influence this is like, I think maybe when in the past, like we said, GTA was just like supposed to be real life, right? I think Final Fight characters made it into Street Fighter for the sake of preserving franchises. I think SNK did the same thing. Like, damn. All we were trying to do was kill Street Fighter, and look at us now. We accidentally have 10 different games. Let's just chill out and put them in one. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think this could inspire different kinds of things where, like Sony makes another game that is like called something else, but it happens in the Uncharted universe. I could imagine them doing things
like
that
Project Judge. I mean, yeah, it's in the
right,
Yakuza universe.
Exactly, right. This kind of like more like purposeful thing. I do just want to say one other thing, because it has to do with Soul Calibur. I just looked up our Soul Calibur and Tekken in the same universe, because of like Yoshimitsu and some of the obvious parallels, like Young Sung and Hwarang. They say Zasalamel is Raven.
What?
What? I guess because Zasalamel is immortal.
Zazmasol?
Yeah, Zazmasol. Okay. So Zazmasol is Raven. So this is confirmed.
Wow. Confirmed.
No,
because Raven wears sunglasses, so you can't really see like that eye thing or anything. I don't know.
Right. See. So there we have.
I'm down with that. Well, technically, Street Fighter and Tekken are in the same universe now too.
Yeah, damn near. And Final Fantasy and King of Fighters,
exactly,
and The Walking Dead,
So,
so.
And Star Wars, I guess, because Star Wars was in Soul Calibur,
and so
Assassin's Creed, and
so was Assassin's Creed, so was God of War, because Kratos is in the PSP one, so was Zelda, so was Spawn. So yeah, every game is in the same universe, so it's a game world. Like Wreck-It Ralph, like that's real.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, let's change topics. And there was nothing really that like triggered this. Wanting to talk about this topic. It's just kind of one that I'm always like conscious of. I think, and when I hear things about like graphics and stuff, I know Spider-Man came out. There was a big, people are like, the graphics look so much better in the trailers, and Not saying that it still doesn't look good. And the big one for that was Witcher 3. Witcher 3, when it came out, people said that it had been a big graphics downgrade, and it was to basically make it run on consoles, so they had to kind of quote unquote dumb the game down to make it run well on consoles. It could have been this great, amazing graphical thing on if it was PC only or whatever. And I've been a PC gamer, I guess, in like the 90s and stuff. I used to play Myst and Journeyman Project and King's Quest and Command and Conquer and stuff like that. So I am familiar with the PC experience to some extent, but as I grew older, I just kind of stuck with consoles. And I think, Marz Vindicator and myself have always been more or less console gamers. And I just think it's funny how like PC only gamers are so ridiculous about it. Like it's always, PC master race, why would I buy this on anything but a PC? Even when I think PC communities, as far as multiplayer games go, fighting games, definitely like, Call of Duty and stuff like that. I think they have probably the lesser, community. Because on PC, you could just be playing anything. Some people might be playing Civilization. Other people are playing Dota. So I think the community that's going to be playing like Tekken 7 on PC is going to be much smaller than say the community playing Tekken 7 on PS4 or something like that. But my whole thing is like, I don't think that consoles are holding PCs back because, it's been stated before that like if it weren't for console money, if it weren't for Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo putting money into these games, big games like The Witcher and stuff like that, then these games wouldn't be nearly as big as they end up being anyway, because like they just wouldn't have the potential for sales to be able to make this big giant open world or whatever. So, the idea that like consoles are ruining the PC experience or making games dumber somehow or holding back developments and graphics and stuff like that, I think is way overblown. So I don't know. Marz Vindicator, what do you think about this?
That's just dumb. There's just no way that I'm gonna accept that console games are holding PC games back. I understand like I I guess the hard logic, like where they come, like, yes, like if games were only on PCs, right, then they would be, focused on always making these new graphical updates. And we probably go back to a time where in the past, where PC was playing like Crisis and we were just stuck with like PS2,
Yeah.
Where, but I mean, but Crisis sucks, what I'm saying? And it's like, and I mean, yeah, I'm sure that they could make a wonderful looking game that also is a good game as well. Like, I'm sure, right? But yeah, I mean, that's not all video games are about, right? And I think too, even talking like that, I think you just go down this rabbit hole of completely misunderstanding the idea of, like running a company, running a business, and like humans and their, willingness to adapt to new technology, I mean, it's one thing to come out with like new iPhones and stuff every year, but I mean, to expect average video game players to be consistently upgrading graphics cards and things like that, like it's foolish, right? I mean, there's this long held feeling that I mean, like you asked a damn baby boomer, they want to buy a piece of tech and use it for 30 years, right? I bought this oven and my grandmama bought this oven in 1933 and I can still cook with it in 74. Like that's the type of shit that they like, right? And I mean, of course, this has kind of gone down over time. We're used to getting something new every 5 years or whatever, but I mean, like,
they still want to use their iPhone 3,
Exactly. Why don't they upgrade it?
12, yeah. How come it runs slower on my iPhone 3?
Right. And it's like, but with phones, I mean, I think it works a little bit better because I mean, you're getting this new item and stuff, but it's just the phone. And I mean, like, come on, like we get those incremental upgrades, and even the phones, I think the phones themselves, I think, are just incremental upgrades, and again, yes, it costs, I guess, technically it will cost you, $800 to get the new phone every year, every 2 years, whatever your contract. But like at the end of the day, I think we can all accept the fact that having a communication device is more important than a video game device, right? In the long run, right? I know how those things overlap, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just one of our bigger priorities. So yeah, like, I mean, upgrading your PC for games every 2 years is just not going to happen to the average gamer. I even wonder if any of those gamers have kids or are really even like thinking about that, like, because I realized that the other week, like, I was like, oh shoot, like my 6-year-old nephew, I'm gonna let him play my Switch, right? And like, he was kind of cool with it, but he has he was like 5 and he has like a 3-year-old brother and he's a 3-year-old. So my sister was like, I'm just not going to buy this for him because they're probably just going to, blow it up. You know what I'm saying? And I get that, right? Like, who wants to spend $300 to have it be blown up? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, to go and get graphics cards every 2 months so your kids can play, a new version of Angry Birds, like, that's just absurd,
Yeah.
Well, it's like 4K Angry Birds, like, come on.
Well, yeah, it's like this arrogance thing, with a lot of PC gamers, I feel like. And I don't know how much of it is genuine, how much of it is like tongue in cheek, but still, like, I mean, the amount of people you hear hollering, PC Master Race or whatever, it reminds me of back in the day when there used to be such a great divide between PC games and console games. I mean, they were like nothing alike. And nowadays, like, you get Diablo 3 on console and stuff like that. And,
right.
I mean, so, and you're getting Halo on PC now and stuff like that. It's just, so I think there's less of a divide between the two platforms anyway. And what, the one thing you've never gotten on PC anyway is like Nintendo stuff. So, I mean, that entire, as innovative and different and unique as Nintendo can be and all the stuff that they offer, like, you've never seen that on PC, so right. You can go on and on about, we have this and we have that on PC and the graphics are better or whatever. I can run, The Witcher 3 in 16K or whatever, who cares?
Right.
Like, you can't play Smash Bros on there. You can't play all sorts of things. And so I think it's just like, I don't know. I don't see it as being a holding back. I mean, if you want to make that argument, I mean, you could just say that, like, mobile games are holding back consoles or something like that. I mean, it's like there's almost no end to it. And I mean, furthermore, I think if you want to take the real, like, libertarian capitalist approach to this, I mean, I think having diversity in the marketplace is like, it's known that this is going to cause innovation, and it's going to cause boundaries to be pushed, because everyone wants to sell the most. So if one company's doing it big, you're going to want to do it bigger. So I don't think there's any problem with having multiple different platforms competing with each other.
Exactly. And, and two, I just think another point is, again, I get that we're probably used to this because we've been made used to it, but I have a gaming ready PC and I still just don't use it because, if you think that you got to really, like, sit up in your house, with no family or friends, butt naked, with a keyboard, eating chips, and playing, I don't know, some shit on Steam. Like, that's really how you have to approach gaming, right? Like, it doesn't work like that if you see gaming as quite social, and you need this system to have in front of the TV. It's just dumb, I mean, I don't want to start up Windows when I want to play a game. I mean, it's bad enough that I have to deal with the stuff on game consoles now. I don't have time for that.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're in agreement pretty much on that. Although, of course, as console plebs, I guess people will say that's, of course we're going to agree. But, well, whatever. Keep your PC. If you like your PC games, that's fine. You can play The Sims or whatever. That's cool. Well, Smokey agrees. Anyway, next topic. This one, I did a lot of research on this topic. Telltale Games, sadly, according to some, is closing down. And, of course, Telltale Games famous for their narrative-based games and, the Walking Dead, season 1 through whatever, all these different episodes and whatever. Basically, narrative point-and-click games, which I had always thought were extremely popular. There's Walking Dead. They did, I think, Borderlands. They did Guardians of the Galaxy. They did Game of Thrones. They've done several different of these, narrative series. And I was shocked when I heard that this studio was closing because, I'm someone, as much as I hate IGN and GameSpot, I tend to go to those websites pretty much every day and just to, search for some news or look at some trailers or screenshots or whatever, reviews, whatever the case may be. And what I always noticed was every single day I would see something relating to one of these games on there. If it was, Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 2, walkthrough, and, did you find this and that Easter egg, and da-da-da-da-da. And it seemed like these games had this constant presence on there, especially in advertising, too. You'd always see ads for these games. And like I said, I was shocked when I heard that they were closing because I thought these games were the most popular games out. I thought everyone was playing these games and they were some big old thing. I'd always see them on the PlayStation Store and everything. So I think what ended up being here, because I looked at the sales numbers for these games when I heard that the studio was closing, I looked up Telltale Games on VG charts. Not one of their games, and mind you, these games cost like $20 a piece, for the whole season, if I'm not mistaken. Not one of them sold even 1 million copies, and these are cross-platform games. They're on everything. In fact, they sold, some of them were extremely low. I mean, you're looking at like 30,000 copies or something like that. So, I mean,
these weren't included.
Oh yeah. It was total sales. So, unless they don't include digital in that, I mean, I looked at total sales, all time. And so I was really surprised by that. And it kind of made me think, so maybe these games they were never as popular as these websites were making them out to be. And I started to wonder, why is that? Why were these games being pushed so hard? And it turns out that apparently Telltale was spending, a ton of their budget on like marketing and everything like that, and really pushing these games, to which they had these giant licenses. And I think that I talked to a couple of coworkers today about this who were familiar with those games, and the conclusion that I reached was like, it's really not surprising that this studio would close, because number one, they had bad practices, business practices. I guess they weren't paying people overtime. They didn't give anyone severance pay when they had to close the studio down. They were still hiring people up to like a few weeks ago. And on top of that, like they didn't update their engine or anything like that for, like 10 years or something. So they're still using this extremely outdated Nickelodeon 3D movie maker looking engine for these games.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen some of like the Guardians of the Galaxy? It looks absolutely terrible. And so, like, I mean, really, it was just the only appeal of these games was the story. And if you were into that particular franchises, like especially The Walking Dead, because there was so little gameplay involved. And I don't think that these types of games are really sustainable in the long run. I mean, a lot of people, if you're not even going to bother to buy it, you can just watch the whole thing on YouTube and be good and not pay a penny. I mean, you're missing out on so little gameplay. According to what I've heard, like there's very little even like puzzle solving or anything like that in these games. So it's basically just point and click, dialogue choices and telling your character where to walk on the screen and some QTE stuff. So investigating further, I'm not surprised at all that the studio is closing down. And what I'm more surprised by is the fact that like this image was built up about this studio and about these games that seems to overstate their relevance in gaming, in the gaming universe at large. So I don't know. Marz Vinegar, what do you think about all this?
I mean, well, I was kind of the same way. I said, I always see those, Telltale, Game of Thrones, Telltale, The Nutty Professor, I don't know. They had a game for everything. And yeah, I mean, it used to always kind of just get me because, a lot of those were, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like I won a real Guardians game, right? But, like there wasn't one. It was just their game. And I mean, and I don't have any huge issue with those kinds of games, point and click or, whatever have you. But, yeah, I mean, they just always seem kind of corny to me.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to play that, then that's fine. I personally have no interest in those type of games. I mean, I like point and click games like, Myst and Riven and stuff things where there are like puzzle solving involved and cerebral things and, aesthetic things about it. But when it's basically just like, do this extremely obvious thing on the screen, pick up this item that's on the floor and put it in the slot. Apparently that's like the extent of the puzzles in these games. So,
well, that, and even just the fact that, like, for example, I mean, so yes, Heavy Rain may be a point and click game or whatever you want to call it, but like, that's how you enjoy Heavy Rain. You know what I'm saying? I guess my thing with those games was like, I've already seen Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, there's a million Guardians comic books. Why do I need like a story based game, with no real action whatsoever to enjoy Guardians? Like that story is already around, so it's like, even like Spider-Man, like I enjoy the Spider-Man story, right? But this game is a game, and that's another part of, what makes it fun, and it looks good as hell. You know what I'm saying?
Unlike,
the Telltale
3D
games.
movie maker.
So, I mean, I like including all games. I try to, accept other people's gaming interests. To the people who, lost their favorite studio, sorry. But this is a great time to go play Detroit Become Human or Heavy Rain or something, But for me, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, like Detroit Become Human, I think at least physical copies didn't even sell 1 million either. So, I mean, as much marketing as that got.
Right.
You just wonder with these type of games where it's like it's literally like watching a movie with some minimal interaction. I mean, Detroit has a little bit more than Walking Dead. I think at least you can like walk your character around places and stuff like that. But
well, yeah,
I
and
mean,
you know, well, at least the thing with me with Quantic Dream is that, well, I'm basing it solely off of Heavy Rain, but like it was a very moving story. You know, so I enjoyed that story. So I think I'll enjoy the Detroit story, but I don't think it's like a great example of a game, you know.
mhm. Yeah, and you wonder how many people who are interested, like myself, like I watched Avoiding the Puddle play Detroit Become Human in its entirety. It's
No spoil-
yeah, so like I kind of do want to play it because I do want to see some of the other, you know, branching paths and stuff like that. But according to what I've heard from people that have played these Telltale games, there's not even that many different branching paths. It's not like Detroit where, you know, at the end of every chapter, it shows you all the different outcomes that could have possibly happened. And, you know, you selected this one out of 10, you know, or whatever. But Telltale Games, apparently, like, you know, you're going to get one of maybe 3 endings, and then 2 of those are going to get retconned anyway and at the start of the next season. So what does it even matter? So
Exactly.
I think these are just low budget games by a studio that had some good writers, perhaps. And I guess if you're a big fan of The Walking Dead or one of these franchises, I guess you might have enjoyed the games, but I don't really feel any remorse or any sadness in the closure of this studio. In fact, I'm going to be quite pleased that I won't have to look at, you know, Telltale Walking Dead episode 14 of 15 on GameSpot every 2 days. So,
Right.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
good riddance.
Yeah. I'm totally good on those.
All right. Well, speaking of good riddance, lastly, we have sports games we're going to talk about. Now, I think we kind of touched on this before we started recording the episode. I think we agree on the basic premise of this topic. My whole thing with sports games, I used to play a lot of NBA 2K in college. I had 2K8, and we, you know, my roommates and suite mates and everything, we were big into that game. We had tournaments and everything, you know, custom rosters, custom sliders, you know, you name it. And we played a lot of 2K8, 2K7 as well. And, you know, at that point in my life, I feel like I intended to buy basically every iteration of 2K that came out because I had so much fun with them. But eventually I started to realize that basically they just release, you know, the same game over and over and over again every year with minimal changes. And I just don't think that this is a good method for releasing these games. I think it rips people off in the long run. Mars Vindicator, what are your thoughts on sports games, simulation sports games specifically?
Well, I definitely feel that, you know, having this new physical release every year I do think that it is something that is unnecessary, right? I think that, you know, all of the quote unquote updates, you know, that these games supposedly have aren't necessarily, you know, the biggest or the best updates. And, you know, yeah, so I think that, you know, as they are now, I do think that there's some issues with it. But I guess at the same time, though, if the game, you know, if they put the game out and then they had you update it every year, then they had you pay $60 to get the update every year, I wouldn't necessarily see an issue with that. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, like, okay, come on, everybody. No, like they can't just make this game for free. They can't just make it and let it just be played for 8 years without no more income. You know, that's just absurd. And, you know, for people to even think, you know, if we could just have it and then they just give us free updates, right? Like that's just not going to work. they do have to continuously make money. I guess I just think that the improvements that they make have to be worthwhile. But then you get into that, like, how many worthwhile improvements are you really going to make? Every year and things like that, right? And then I think another factor with this as well is, I don't know exactly what these contracts are like, with the licenses with the NBA. It may be a thing where the NBA wouldn't even allow them to make the games if they don't put out a game every year and make a big deal out of it, so I think there's probably like a lot of different angles to it. And it kind of comes down to, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't buy 2K every year, but I do enjoy 2K. So I'll buy it every 3 years, or, I'll buy an old copy when it's 8 months old. I'll find some way around it. But I mean, if you like 2K, you just got to buy it every year.
Well, that's the thing that gets me is, I mean, the real big customers could be playing, if they're getting the special editions, they could be paying like $100 plus the cost of all the, microtransactions and everything that are contained within these games. So, I mean, you could be easily paying over $100 per year for these games. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I just think that, given the fact that like these games immediately lose value, so like they have no trade-in value, any of these games really. I mean, even if it's like brand new, I feel like you're not going to get very much trade-in value for it, because it's just going to be outdated in a year or less. Also, I think that just these games are, because there's this lack of real competition between, I mean, you look at like basketball, I mean, you have live, but it's been lagging behind for so long that it's really like a sort of a joke of a franchise at the moment. I mean, supposedly this year was significantly better than it had been in a while, but still, like, 2K is the basketball game, and there's no question about it. And same with like Madden. Madden is the football game. FIFA is basically the, football game. I mean, so I think that given that there's a lack of competition, you end up with, in the same way that we were saying, consoles and PCs and having all these different competing platforms can push innovation. I think the lack of competition in sports games causes innovation to be held back. I mean, these games like 2K, I mean, how long has it been, where since 2K's had players sliding across the floor and animations look weird, and, there's all these glitches and stuff. Online isn't very good. There's lots of lag. The graphics are outdated, to say the least, I think. I just feel like an increase in diversity and competition in the marketplace for sports games would definitely help them. Either that, or if you make all these games like a free to play platform with a bunch of microtransactions and roster updates, I think, like you said, I think it's perfectly reasonable to charge somewhere around $60 for a yearly upgrade, because they are adding like new models into the game, new players every year, and updating the rosters and everything. And rule changes or whatever the case may be, jersey changes, everything. I think that's reasonable. I just think that if it were a free-to-play platform, some of these problems that they do have, like animations look weird and glitches that happen and stuff like that, would be way easier to swallow.
I mean, I guess so, yeah. But I guess though at that point is like, I mean, what's really the difference? At this point, I mean, we say it'd be easier to swallow, but I think, as we all know, I think free to play games usually end up making more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, we'd probably be paying more money that way. So it's like, I mean, yeah, we can talk about what would be easier to swallow, but it's like, but then like for real, how much will we be paying? And I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, I hear guys all the time, talk about VC. I think one of the things that we have to remember about like predatory practices is, if people allow themselves to be prey, then, I mean, I can't.
So be it.
Yeah, I can't do anything. I mean, I had homeboys talk about, yeah, I'm getting VC. I mean, like, I remember when one of my old coworkers, I mean, like when he found out about the 1X, when he found out the 1X was going to come out, his thing was like, I'm buying the 1X with 2K and the most expensive version for all of DC, for all of VC. And it's like, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, wow, you could get a PlayStation 4 and play a lot of other games and, not do that, but that's what people want to do, and people just, people just like to spend that money, so. I mean, shoot, if that's where they're gonna go, let them go. I mean, there's a whole, Black Vine, Black Twitter, Black Instagram, set of. I wouldn't even just say it's black, but I mean, it's largely those people, like Instagram memes about your girl coming home and deleting all your VC, or your girl buys you 2K on the wrong system, or she buys VC from the year before, or just like all this like ridiculous stuff, and it's like this whole set of memes, and I mean, like, people buy that stuff, so I mean, if it were free to play, I think they'd probably be making 2 times as much money, and we'd be sitting there talking about it's good, but we'd probably be getting the same stuff,
I know, and it's a weird like problem to have. I think it's just like I just find it absurd that like if you look at a screenshot of like 2K14 on the PS4 and then look at like 2K19 like and you don't know which one is which, like you're probably not even going to be able to tell. Like really,
right? Well,
like,
but
there's just not that many advancements, And
I guess that's, I mean, like, this is true, but I mean, like, again, this is one of those things that you have to think about from the business perspective. Like, if you ran 2K games, would you make those graphical updates?
No.
Exactly, right. So,
but I think I don't know. It's just something about like if it's free to play, I feel like you can jack in at any time, and you can be like, I'm going to play a basketball game now, and it's mid season or it's in the off season or something like that. I'm gonna download 2K and I'm gonna play it. And you might not have to, you might just want to play a few games or something like that. Or you might want to get involved for that season or something like that. And maybe you update the roster for $30 or something like that. And then I don't know. I feel like you can control your spending a lot more. And some people are going to be buying everything. They're going to be updating the rosters constantly, and they're going to be downloading all the new jerseys and shoes and all that stuff. Of course. But I think to someone like me, like, I mean, I bought 2K15 and I played it like 6 times, and I was like, damn, I spent $60 on this thing. And like, it just was, there was so little innovation from the last version that I had played that it was just like, why did I even buy this? Like, so I don't know. I just feel like free to play is so much. There's just less potential for error. I
mean, is there really? Because okay. So this is my thing. So the game, so it's free to play, right? Mm-hmm. I highly doubt that they would even. I can't even imagine what they would give you for free, because they're for damn sure not going to give you access to all the teams, right? For free. They're not just going to let you play full on games for free with all the teams. At that point, it's like, I mean, you're getting I feel like you're getting a little beside yourself. Maybe. I mean, I'm talking about like them, like as a company,
yeah,
they'd be getting beside themselves at that point, right? So then, like, what do you get for free? So it's like, maybe you can, come in and play a basketball game, but what are you really going to play? So that's kind of why my thing is like, just like you said, the games do lose value that quick, right? So it's like, if you want to play 2K mid-season, like this season, just go buy 2K18 in like January. It's going to be like $10, right? At GameStop. You'll be able to download a new roster. And then if you only play 3 games, take that shit back in a week and get your $10 back. I mean, it's kind of like, I get it. Like, I get it, but I guess it's just kind of one of those things that's like, it's just, I feel like it's just never going to happen. I mean, like, cause I mean, and we're talking about 2K. Like, we have to remember that the only reason, like, the only thing stopping 2K or Madden being the best selling game in the world is the fact that those sports aren't as popular as soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, I think that's the other thing that these companies think about with these games. Like, the sales of their games almost have nothing to do with how good that game actually is.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
It has to do with like the
license,
sport.
yeah, and the sport, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, look, FIFA, like, I would love to be FIFA. It's, I mean, yeah, what FIFA 18 is the 9th best-selling game of 2018. Right? So, like, think about that, right? Because it came out in 2017. You know what I'm saying? So, like, boom. And like, once FIFA 19 comes out this week, it's going to jump up the charts immediately. All this foothold that God of War, Monster Hunter, Far Cry, Mario Kart 8, this foothold that all of these games have is going to be like taken away immediately by FIFA and Call of Duty. Immediately. So.
And
that's that. I mean, yeah, like, I just like these numbers are absurd. Like, okay.
For FIFA?
Yeah, like, well, even really Call of Duty. So look, like, okay.
Oh yeah, I remember Call of Duty, especially in antiquity with Call of Duty. It was like, Modern Warfare 2, like the sales were absurd with that. Black Ops 2,
I mean, like, because these they come out at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, Breath of the Wild, right? Probably a lot of people think it's the best game of the year, or whatever, right? 44 weeks on the charts. It was out in that year for 44 weeks. It sold 6 million copies, right? That's just on the Switch.
Damn.
14 weeks for FIFA and you got 10 million. 9 weeks for Duty and you got 11. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, Odyssey, I mean, cheers to Odyssey. They did 10 weeks with 7 million. That's pretty damn good, especially for like a system that came out that year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, I mean, yeah, the numbers are just, the numbers are absurd.
Yeah. Every year Call of Duty would come out and they would say, it's the best selling Call of Duty ever. Every single one.
Right.
Would beat the previous one and every other game out.
But yeah, man.
There's nothing wrong with that also.
Right. Yeah.
People are like, so ready to be like, Call of Duty, it's garbage. And, sports games, it's, for, not real gamers or whatever they might be saying. But, this is no different from, the newest Marvel movie being the best selling movie of the year. It's like.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. So I mean, I definitely get all of the logic with, the sports games and all that stuff. But I mean, when you're making that kind of money, nobody's going to stop you.
Right.
You're not going to stop yourself.
Yeah, I just feel like it just seems so ridiculous though nowadays. I mean, I feel like even back then, like, 2K, 6 and 7 and 8, like there's like big graphical changes and stuff like that. But now it's like there's hardly any, and it just seems like, ridiculous to every year put all this advertising money into like, it's got so and so on the cover, like whatever. It's the same damn game. I don't know. So like, there's got to be a better way, but maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't.
I mean, a better way for us or a better way for them.
No, that's the question. I guess it isn't the best way for them because what's current is the best way for them because, if it wasn't, they'd be doing it differently. But
right.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap it up for status quo number 22. Yeah. We talked about sports games. We talked about Telltale. We talked about consoles and PCs and Marvel Gaming Universe and a bunch of flake news.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
And we'll see you next Monday for episode 23. This is Queasy Crayfish, and I think this time I'll be out of here. Marz Vindicator, are you going to stay or you're going to go?
I never stay. I'm on the go.
Never stay.
I'm going to catch a Meltan. Or a Meltan. You never know.
A Meltan. All right, we're out of here.